Hello YouTube, today I'm introducing the last Q&A kind that will be on this channel for a while. That is going to complete the trial that we already have with natural hypertrophy in injury, and it's going to be nutrition. So as an introduction, in terms of my knowledge base, nutrition is the one portion of training where I'm the least accurate, that I've done the least research on, that I have the least knowledge about. My experience is not super grand. So overall, I do want you to take these Q&As with a bit of a grain of salt, because compared to something like hypertrophy, for example, on which I'm very knowledgeable, nutrition is still an area for me that I'm researching. I still make discoveries all the time, and I'm still experimenting with my own body. So I will give you advice because I have certain aspects of it that I master, but if I don't know, I'm not going to send you on some wild goose chase. I will tell you that I don't know. But please do ask away your questions and try to keep them under the right Q&A. It makes it much easier for me to track them, and that way I can actually answer them. So we're going to do a short nutrition Q&A today. It's going to be 25 minutes, but then this is going to be something that I want to have happen maybe every 2 months, 3 months, so that we have several occurrences of the Q&A each year. So let's get into it. Before I start, I need to say that as a disclaimer, I do not subscribe to the idea that nutrition is 80%. You know, some people say 80% nutrition or 70% nutrition, 20% training and 10% recovery. I think that's bogus. I think that nutrition is the least important aspect, meaning that once you've created a base and you've made your nutritional platform and you get your macros and you know the foods that agree with you, you've done the work. So you cannot say it's 70%. Because training actually takes effort. Putting stuff in your mouth doesn't, in my opinion. Unless you're really obese or really skinny and struggling to gain or lose weight, your diet won't even register. At some point, it's going to be an automatism. You won't even think about it twice. And you won't have to put any efforts into maintaining it if you're doing something proper, meaning that a diet shouldn't be a struggle. Your training should be a struggle. But let's get into it. I've got several questions. It's funny because those nutrition questions would pop up in every Q&A here and there. So I regrouped all of them and I'm starting to discuss them here. Broken Microphone asks, NH, I don't think you've talked about this in previous videos, so might as well ask here. How much protein do you eat? Do you try to eat 2 times your weight in kilograms? I started doing that a month ago and I've realized that I'm struggling to eat enough. There is only so much chicken breast one can eat. Okay, lots of aspects in this question. First off, the bro diets of, chicken breast and broccoli and rice, it's become a meme, but I know that some people still eat that. And it's going to be an issue down the line because yes, if you repeat the same protein source in your diet day in and day out, you're going to get tired of it. Especially if it's chicken breast, which tends to be one of the driest cut of meat you can put your hands on. And when you look at what most people do, like if you type pro bodybuilder bulk, and you see the way they cook their chicken, it's bland. They boil it. Boiling chicken is a crime against humanity. Never do that. You either put it in the oven so that it stays juicy, or you put it in the pan. You never boil chicken. And please don't cook your chicken with the vapor thing. It's the same thing. You're going to end up with something that looks like tofu that has no taste, no consistency. It's no good. You can make chicken taste good. You should spice your chicken. That's how you can actually eat chicken in large quantities. I spent a year eating chicken breast, spinach, rice, and green olives. That's all I ate. Some dark chocolate once in a while. The way I did that is I would spice my chicken with every single spice I could find because it's what gives it the taste. So that's one thing. Multiply and diversify your sources of protein. Fish, try fatty fish. Try vegetable sources, even though you don't digest them as well as meat in terms of proteins that you actually can intake, not in terms of digestion and gas and the comfort of your stomach and health. You should also try and complement the animal proteins with vegetable proteins. They complement each other well. And as you realized, because you're starting to eat so much, they take, even though in terms of satiation, animal protein tends to be super high in terms of calorie to satiation ratio, meaning that
they're not going to be super caloric, but they're going to stuff you. You're going to be done. You won't want to eat anymore. And the issue is that, one, they take pockets of time where you should be feeding your body, but you can't because you've eaten them and now you don't want to eat anymore. It feels like a struggle. And two, because, as you've noticed too, they take those pockets, but they don't really feed you that well. They don't give you that many calories. And that's an issue because a lot of young men who are skinny and who might have a high metabolism fall into the high protein diets. And one, their body doesn't have the ability to handle all of that protein because they barely have any muscle mass and they barely damage the muscle as is. So the protein is just recycled as waste and thrown away. Plus, all of that protein that they eat makes them full, so they don't eat as many calories. And when you're trying to gain weight, the amount of calories you consume is more important than the macros to an extent. In terms of pure gain of mass, what matters is the calories you intake. So you need to make sure that the mix and combo of macros you intake is beneficial towards a highly caloric intake, which means carbs. Consume carbs. Even if you have to reduce your proteins, it's fine. The carbs are going to make up the bulk of your caloric intake. They are easy to eat because they don't satiate you at all. And they also are something you can cycle throughout the day, unlike, as you realized, something like chicken breasts. I'm sort of like building back from the start of your question. Do you try to eat 2 times your weight in kilograms? So I think what you're saying is, what a lot of people do is, I think is it in kilograms or in pounds? Yeah, in grams, so it would be 2 times, so I'm 95 kilos, so it would be around 200 grams of proteins. I don't do that. I'm not even close to that. And I'm going to tell you right now that for most people, it's not necessary at all. It might be if you're going for the satiation effect of the protein, but besides steroid users, most people don't have the ability to handle all of that protein in the first place. Your body needs protein, of course, but past a certain point, it sort of just uses it as calorie and uses it to as a fuel to burn so that you stay warm. It's not really going to be something that improves your anabolism at all. Anabolism is mainly improved through training because it increases the demands of the body. So no, I would say I eat, and again, I'm 210 pounds, so it's 95 kilograms. I eat maybe 120, 140 grams of proteins a day. That's it. And 140 would be on my very heavy days of proteins because I mostly eat carbs. I eat low fat, moderate protein, high carbs. That's how I eat, and that's how my body looks the best. And again, how much protein do you eat? So I just answered that, and that's it. So that's your question. So I hope I helped you on this one. I know that this nutrition Q&A is going to be a lot of debunking from my part because there's a lot of myths. Keep in mind also that the people who push the idea that you need a ton of protein to grow, they're also the ones who have supplement company sponsorships and they sell protein powder, and they have an interest in you getting rid of that protein as quickly as possible. They want you to drink that stuff in 2 weeks so that you have to buy it again. As a rule of thumb, when you buy a supplement, look at the dose they tell you to take, cut it in half, and take 50% of what they say to take. That's plenty. They're trying to make you consume more. But your body is not going to respond to that consumerism because it doesn't have the ability to. Sigs MC asks, in the video on slim fat people, which I guess he means skinny fat, you said that they should eat in a caloric deficit. I never said that. Consume a lot of protein. I never said that either. And work out. Yes, train. So you got one thing true out of 3. How can one build muscle in deficit? And how long does it take to see results? Okay. So I don't know if you just had a typo or if you just, misenunciated your thoughts. What I said for skinny fat people is stay either at maintenance or a very slight bulk or deficit. Don't enter heavy deficits or bulks. You're just going to keep teaching your metabolism to store fat. Train, focus on training for a very long time. And in terms of proteins, just, yes, eat your proteins, but balance your diet. A balanced diet is all you need. I am personally firmly against the extremist diets of keto, of I think, yeah, it's of no carbs at all, or oh, no fats at all, only proteins, only meats, only vegetables, no animal products. These are called extremist diets for a reason. It's because they're only going to work for an extremely small portion of the population. Yes, some people get away with it, but they're the exception, they're not the rules. We are omnivorous. You're supposed to eat a balanced diet. That being said, that has nothing to do with the question, but how can one build muscle in deficit though? You can build muscle in deficit, that's another myth. What you need to look at is how much muscle are you going to gain? Is it optimal for gain? And what is exactly muscle gain? Because most people don't know what even that means. And even the people who actually get their body fat tested and they do all these tests, they don't even know what that means, because those body fat tests are for the most part highly inaccurate. And you can cheat them, especially if you have to show results to an audience. You can cheat them easily. It's been proven several times. Don't even base any amount of brain energy on that. What you're going to do is you're going to keep tracking productive overload, your strength progression, your tonnage progression. That is a better indication of muscular gain past the novice phase and the neurological adaptation. You can totally build muscle in a deficit. It's just going to be much slower. Why? Because you're going to have to strike a balance. The way building muscle works is this. And I'm just going to check if my battery is not going to die. But basically, your body is not super keen on building muscle. What your body wants to do is keep you alive. And to keep you alive, your body has to keep your organs afloat. So most of the energy goes to the organs. That's the number one priority. If you are low, let's say you're on a desert island, you have no food. Your body prioritizes the organs, and it also prioritizes certain organs. It's also the reason why when you're in the cold, your extremities get super cold to the point where they could freeze off. Why? Your body don't care about your digits. It cares about the heart. So it sends all of the blood to the organ so that it stays warm. It cannot get damaged by the cold. And if it has to sacrifice a finger or two, it will. Same logic for this. You will enter at some point, if you're out of food completely, a phase and a stage that is called autophagy, which is cannibalism of the body by the body, where your body is going to start eating. And it starts with fat, and then when the fat reserves are mostly dissolved, it attacks the muscle. So it has its priorities in mind. There's also the fact that it's much easier to put on fat because fat is much more soluble, so your body likes it much better, and fat doesn't take any energy to maintain. Your body is extremely glutinous in energy. So what I said before, keep in mind also that if you think of the body as an intelligent machine, you might also be in a phase of autophagy or mild autophagy when you're in a mild deficit, where you're losing muscle at the same rate as you're losing fat. Why? The body has calculated that you're in a deficit of calorie. It looks at what the muscle is doing. The muscle is burning those calories. I already don't have calories. I want those calories to keep the organs alive. Burning the muscle barely gives me any calories. Burning the fat gives me a ton. I'm going to get rid of the thing that is making my calculus and my management inaccurate or difficult or dangerous for the health of the body. I'm going on a tangent here, but this is interesting to discuss. So, all of that to say what? Yes, you can build muscle in a deficit. It's much tougher than building muscle at maintenance, which is also by itself much tougher than building muscle at surplus. Why? Keep in mind what I just said. If you give the body ample resources, it has ample resources to keep the organs afloat. So it's going to be much more open to the idea of giving those resources to the muscle so they can grow. Issue is, any resource that the body cannot transform into muscle is going to be transformed into fat. That's the entire, I just resumed cuts, maintenance, and bulk. You have to strike that balance. Is it possible to strike a balance of maintenance or a slight surplus so perfect that you mostly gain muscle with an appropriate training? Yes. Is it realistic? No, because technically it's impossible to really track that accurately. That being said, it also means that a maintenance is going to lower fat gains, but it also means it lowers muscle gains. And if you take that into the extreme of a deficit, it is going to highly boost fat loss if you train accordingly on the side, but it also means that the muscle gains are going to be minimal. That's the logic. And you might get into a point where you're so advanced in terms of muscularity that the body has developed a strong resistance towards building more muscle. And that's something people never talk about. It's not necessarily that the body has met a limit, it's that the threshold of tonnage and strength that you've accumulated to be able to build that muscle is not going to be yours anymore in a deficit because you're going to get weaker. So the reason why you're going to stop being able to build muscle or to even maintain the muscle mass in that deficit is not necessarily that the body cannot use the calories anymore to build the muscle. It's that you have lost the ability to stimulate the muscle at the rate at which it's used to be stimulated, hence it doesn't grow. I hope that makes sense. And you ask how long does it take to see results? That one is going to be easy to answer. As long as it takes. This is not a race. You're not going to train for 2 months and then be done. You're going to train for the rest of your life, so don't worry about the time it takes. Chris asks, hey bro, how would I be able to figure out the most optimal weight to be and maintain? I don't plan on competing. Okay, very important that you told me that you don't plan on competing, because for naturals, okay, I'm not talking pro bodybuilders, between a natural that is planning on competing on a stage and a natural that doesn't, there's a huge difference. One abides by their own rules, the other abides by the rules of the judge and of the competition. The truth of the matter is, if you compete in bodybuilding, I will make a video about that, the entirety of bodybuilding is a line after pro bodybuilding, which means you have to come in lean. And by lean, I mean around 10%. That's lean. For natural, it's tough to dive down to that level, especially if you want to stay big. Some people will tell you it's not possible to stay big. I would say that once you start getting to 8%, yeah, it's true. You're going to have to sacrifice mass. And sometimes you sacrifice so much mass that you show up on stage and you don't even look like you lift. To me, there's no point. So you're telling me you don't plan on competing. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to just train. And you're going to avoid extreme diets as much as you can, which means no extreme cuts for the beach, no extreme bulks because you have a massive influx of body dysmorphia in the winter and you want to look big. Progressive overload, smart programming, maintenance, a slight surplus or a slight deficit, depending on where you want to take your body weight, and you look at yourself in the mirror. Forget the scale. The scale is good to see if what you're putting in your plate and in the gym is actually pushing you towards the direction you want to be in. But look at yourself. You're doing this to please yourself. You're not competing. So the only thing that matters is, do you like what you see? If you like what you see, keep doing that. If you want more mass, you have to go through the slight surplus. All of that is going to take time. And you will see that the optimal weight also implies that for your height, frame, disposition, there is an optimal weight. I will tell you right now, there is none. A lot of people I know like to discuss that. You have calculus that always make me laugh, where people say, oh, if you're 6 feet, then your optimal weight lean will be that or this. Don't even worry about that, because those fluctuations at the highest level of advanced bodybuilding are way too complex. And also, if you're 210 at 15% or 210 at 13%, you're going to look completely different, because you're going to have so much mass on your frame that lowering your body fat by 2% will make you look like a different person. Because a guy who's 250 who loses 2% body fat loses a lot more fat than someone who's 150 and loses 2% body fat. Again, something that people never think about. So your most optimal weight is going to be the one that allows you to make progress in terms of strength and tonnage right now in this instant. And it's also going to be what you envision yourself as. But the perfect body that you want to achieve, one, doesn't exist, because when you reach it, you'll want something better. Two, it's a projection in the future. You don't have to know what weight you'll be, you'll see. When I was 140, I would have never thought that I would get to 210 with abs, ever. And yet here I am. So where will I be in 10 years? I don't know, and I don't want to know, because there's no point. Last question. I know that other people have asked questions. Jacob Weston, Wayfarer, and El Remolino, I wrote your questions down. They will be in the next Q&A. Don't even worry about that. You don't have to ask them again. I'm going to finish with, actually no. I'm going to finish with El Remolino because his question is easier. So Suraj Nair, I'm going to answer your question next time. Remolino asks, would appreciate a video on knowing when to increase protein calories to your maintenance calories. Okay, I pretty much already made that video. It's the guide, the recomp guide. You can find it in the natural hypertrophy playlist. But this is going to be something that aligns with your training, because if your protein or caloric demands increase on the maintenance, it means that the demands of the body increased. First off, that takes a lot of time, unless you have exterior factors that come into play, like your cardiovascular demands have increased, so you move much more throughout the day. Or the weather, so you move to somewhere where it's 50 degrees colder, so your body needs that energy to stay warm. If these factors happen, yes, the increase of caloric demand will be a little bit more extreme, but for the most part, it's going to be super slow. And you will find that most people have receive a message from their body, meaning that your body is going to start asking for more food because it's going to increase their appetite. For people who have what I would call the mismatched appetite, meaning that they either are never hungry, so they are always in a caloric deficit, or always hungry, so always in a surplus, you can pretty much, stay true to your stomach, and that will be good. But in terms of when to increase those protein and calories, first off, you need to do it slowly, because if you slap another 300 or 400 calories, you're entering a bulk. It's not a slow increase. So it needs to be minimal, and I would say that either by putting more food in the plate, so you up the portions, or doing small snacks, that will be plenty. People don't realize that, but a hefty snack of 200 calories, for someone who is in a 2000 diet, that's already a 10% increase. So that's already pretty much a bulk. Just by snacking, you're entering a bulk. So don't underestimate the amount of calories you can intake with just a little snack here and there. That would be plenty. And in terms of protein increase, I'm not too sharp on this. I have personally not increased my calories throughout my protein throughout that maintenance. I have increased my calories. So in terms of ratio, I would say look at calories and look at protein. You're going to have a 1 to 100 ratio in terms of increase. So if you increase your calories by 100, you can maybe increase your protein by 1 gram, maybe. It's not like you're going to get to a point where you eat 400 grams of proteins a day. It's never going to happen. So keep in mind that the evolution of protein is going to be slower, because they might, if you just overdo it on proteins, they might end up producing too much of a satiating effect that you struggle in maintaining that increase of calories, and you want to avoid that. So that's going to be that. If one of your questions I answered, you have a follow-up question, don't hesitate to ask. There's no limits on the Q&A. You can ask as many questions as you want. But for the people that I've told that I will answer their question, no worries. They will be answered in due time. So I hope that this was helpful. If you want to discuss something in the comments, of course, you're always welcome. And I shall be back with another nutrition Q&A in about 2 months. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.